Hey, it's been a while.
Hey, it's CJ!
That's me, CJ the Lego guy. Before we start the video, here's some timestamps down in the comment section down below and in the description to jump ahead to your favorite episodes or my discussion on the finale. But let's start the video with... Hey everyone, CJ here. Hope you're all doing well. We're back with another breakdown video. And, well, as the title suggests, an overall review of Season 3 of Bad Batch just before the finale comes out on Wednesday, May 1st. And, oh boy, this is the first time that I'm doing a video like this where instead of just covering one episode, we're covering a whole season worth of content. And seeing as though I wanted to make a series of videos covering each of the episodes, I felt like this was the most appropriate thing to do. Just recap the season, see where our characters are at, and make some predictions about how the finale is going to play out just before it comes out later this week. But yep, seeing as though this is quite a fun little project that I wanted to do, let's get right into it. But first, just to let you know, some of my other projects are still baking, so I'll still need some more time for that. And I continuously thank you for all of your patience and support as well. I know it's been a few months of ghosting what feels like an entire year, but I can rest assured, I have plenty of stuff that I want to show you once they're all ready to go. Plus, I didn't want to skip out on the chance to make a Bad Batch post before it's finished and completely ended. But yes, more on that later. But for now, let's get right on to the season breakdown recap thing that we're watching. Quick recap of Season 2, we started to see the transition from clone troopers in the Empire to the TK troopers, which will naturally become the stormtroopers. As for the rest of the clones, they're being captured and being sent to Mount Tantiss for experimentation on a secret project run by Dr. Hemlock, which is the major antagonist of Bad Batch, and is working on the most important project to the Empire. When it comes to our characters, one of the most important characters is Crosshair, as we see the way that his mindset on the Empire and himself changed drastically throughout the season. When it first starts off, he's very much pro-Empire, but as we later see throughout his adventures, his beliefs slowly begin to change. And especially with the adventure he had with Mayday, who was the tipping point to making Crosshair realize that perhaps the Empire isn't the best thing for the galaxy nor for himself and his fellow clones. So that was the turning point for Crosshair. And oh boy, I didn't realize I would like Crosshair as much as I did when the show first started, but Crosshair is definitely one of the better and best characters of the show. Naturally, the Bad Batch has been doing mission to mission while dodging the Empire, but when it came to helping out more of their clone brethren and trying to figure out the secrets behind the Empire and why they want Omega so much, they enact a mission to try to break out all the clones by taking on Tantiss. And, oh boy, the Tantiss operation. The Tantiss operation, as we all know it results in the supposed death of Tech. And, oh boy, the impact that it had on both the story and all of us, too. It was really great. Really crazy. Devastating. Not only did the Batch have to deal with the loss of Tech, but also they had to deal with Sid's betrayal to the Empire, as naturally Dr. Hemlock and his forces come to take Omega. And, oh boy, if Tech's supposed death wasn't devastating enough, this was even more so, especially to Hunter. The beginning of Season 3 shows that the reason why Dr. Hemlock really wants Omega for her blood work is because of her high M count, which is very much important to the secret project that he's been working on, which is later revealed to be Project Necromancer. The passage of time within this episode is very much weighing heavy on the characters as we see what Omega, Dr. Emerie, and Crosshair has been going throughout this time while the Batch is trying to scramble to find her. And it's just so crazy how it deals a heavy toll on their psyche as well. Episode 2 deals with the duos that Hunter and Wrecker are doing as they're coping with the loss of Tech, the betrayal of Sid, the loss of Omega, so many things that is happening to them. And even though this episode would seem to be a filler, it's very much a supplementary episode, as we see them have a little misadventure with 3 young clones who they bring back to Pabu. And it was a really great little adventure for them to find their confidence back in themselves again. I thought it was really great and very much needed for these 2 characters, especially Hunter. Episode 3 dealt with the escape plan that Nala Se had in preparations to get Omega out. Not only that, but oh boy, anytime that Doctor, that Emperor Palpatine arrives, it's always a very scary vibe. But yes, he does show up just for Dr. Hemlock to show him the progress with Project Necromancer. And before, in a previous episode, we see the vault doors to which we later see later is a different kind of vault. But here they go through a different room, and oh boy, when they see a test tube open up, we don't see what's inside. But naturally, we can tell that based on Palp's reactions to it, that this is definitely not only a Project Necromancer, but also connecting to the Snoke batch, or at least the first batch of it, which definitely means that even by this time, at the height of the Empire, Palpatine was already working on whatever it is he was doing with himself and Snoke's back in the sequel trilogy, or forward in the trilogy, later in the trilogy. But yeah, this is definitely confirmation that Project Necromancer is pretty much the Snoke clone, and later cloning Palp's body. And by the episode's end, we see that Omega and Crosshair manage to escape Mount Tantiss. Also with Omega's new pet and loyal canine friend, alien canine friend, Batcher, which I just now realized I thought Batcher was just a fun little name to say with the accent and for the lingo in Star Wars, but I just realized that I think Batcher's called Batcher because they're the Bad Batch. Batcher's now a part of the Bad Batch, hence the name Batcher. Still a great name and a fun little addition to the team, though. Episode 4 is an Omega and Crosshair heavy episode, as one would say that this is a supplementary episode in which the two of them bond together and figure out a way to get back to the batch. But it's just funny that it opens up with the ship crashing because, well, they were getting shot down by the Empire. But the most important thing about the episode is the bonding between the two of them, seeing as though Crosshair never wanted anything to do with Omega and all she wanted to do was help out her brother, which is a very sweet theme throughout the season, as we'll later see in the other episodes, that of how much of an impact Omega has on Crosshair once he opened up to her willingness to help her. After their little misadventure, Crosshair and Omega are able to not only find where the batch is, but also reunite with them, which is a very heartfelt moment for Omega, Hunter, and Wrecker, especially for Hunter and Omega, seeing as though they have a father-daughter kind of connection. Naturally, the reunion between Crosshair and his brothers comes at a heavy standstill, seeing as though, naturally, Wrecker and Hunter would be very much hesitant to welcome him back, seeing as though everything that they went through these past 2 seasons. But they definitely understand that without Crosshair's help, Omega wouldn't have returned to them. But there's definitely that still awkwardness between them two, which is natural to come by. And it's great that we have a whole episode to deal with the rebonding of Hunter and Crosshair. It was very sweet to see Omega waking up and feeling at peace once again as she's back with the Batch and the Marauder, seeing as though one would definitely feel a lot more better once you're back in your comfortable home as opposed to a prison where you were being kept safe, quote unquote. With the important thing being that although Omega has matured since the very first episode, she still has those very much childlike mannerisms and ideals, as all she wants to do is just have a home at peace with her brothers. In catching up with Crosshair this episode, it's very much clear that the impact Mount Tantiss had on him was on a mental and physical level, as he is definitely traumatized from both aspects, seeing as though he has his little handshake and his stress that comes about when he can't very much snipe as well as he would, seeing as though all the things that he went through has completely changed him, which is something he didn't want to admit at first, but Omega points out that he definitely needed help, and help he will receive. Naturally, the Batch is apprehensive of Crosshair's help and just him being there, but when Echo joins the team again, he naturally understands that they need to put all that aside in order to get the intel that they need, seeing as though Crosshair has an idea to get information on Mount Tantiss, which unfortunately means they have to go to not only an Imperial outpost, but the snow post. That was the moment of change for Crosshair, and unfortunately, where he lost his dear brother, Mayday. Oh, Mayday. This is a batch-heavy episode, seeing as though this is the start of the road to redemption that Crosshair must take. And I just wanted to point out that the significance between his armor set and his fellow Batch's set, seeing as though they changed their colors to be more themselves, as they're no longer a part of any one faction. They're doing what they must for themselves, and it's more personalized this way as they drop the monikers from the Republic. But I find it very significant that they chose not to touch Crosshair's armor, and seeing as though Crosshair didn't want to change the colors either, now that he's back with the patch, it's very symbolic in the sense of this is his new identity, seeing as though he dropped the Empire identity, seeing as though he doesn't have that armor set anymore, and now he's back into his old batch armor, which I feel like even though it's not color-coded with the others, this is perfectly fine, seeing as though this is a new Crosshair that we're seeing now, one that has completely changed for the better. And I thought that was a really cool touch, and a very good detail if that was the intention. During the mission, when Hunter and Crosshair are in the bunker, and Crosshair finds Mayday's helmet, and he has a moment of silence with the helmet. Hunter does notice this, which I thought it was a very interesting little detail that Hunter realizes that Crosshair has been through a lot, and this is most likely what caused him to want to change. And I'm glad that Hunter gives him that space to leave Crosshair and his thoughts and his feelings towards what Mayday did for him in terms of impacting his heart and mind to change and get away from the Empire. And I find it pretty funny that this scene was all about Hunter literally and figuratively pushing Crosshair to open up about it, which I thought was a great move to get both Hunter and Crosshair to reconnect with each other. When push comes to shove, and Crosshair finally opens up about it, he retells the story of how the Empire seemingly betrayed him, and that being the reason why he left. But we don't get the exact reasoning why Crosshair left right away, seeing as though he tells Hunter more later once the episode is over after the little misadventure here in the snow planet. But Hunter can tell that there definitely was something that happened here specifically that changed Crosshair. And just overall, I really liked the dynamic that Crosshair and Hunter have in this episode. Just everything with this specific story, Phee was just so incredible for the both of them. But before we can get to that, it's also really great to point out that Crosshair takes his turn to do the pushing and shoving, seeing as though he berates Hunter for seemingly being responsible for the capture of Omega and causing her to go through everything that she went through in Mount Tantiss, which isn't necessarily Hunter's fault, but Crosshair knows that that's what Hunter is believing in himself. So naturally, this moment of butting heads is both great for Crosshair and Hunter, seeing as though both their characters are the way that they are because of not wanting to let go of their regrets over their actions. And just such good little character moments. I thought this was a funny shot during the little action scene of this episode, but it's important to point out that this episode was very much the rebuilding of trust between Crosshair and Hunter. Finally, at the end of it, when the batch is warming up to Crosshair and being more willing to let him back into the batch, seeing as though their trust have been built after their little adventure here, Crosshair finally fully opens up to Hunter, in which Hunter, I felt like maybe seemed a little bit too dismissive with Crosshair trying to open up to him, and practically the episode was running out of time, so naturally Hunter couldn't continue the conversation. But it's very important to note that Hunter realizes that it took a lot for Crosshair just to open up about why he left, the impact that Mayday, or at least the event, had on Crosshair, and Crosshair's admittance to he was very much wronged by the Empire, and his ideals of the Empire doing the right thing and Incense himself doing the right thing comes crashing down as Crosshair regrets his actions and felt as though he should have stayed with the batch, seeing as though his identity just crumbled after that moment. And now that he's back, Crosshair is now better than ever and very much grabs his new identity as this new version of himself. And I thought that was really nice, and especially what adds to making Crosshair such a great character, especially in this season. In episode 6, when we see what Rex and the other clone forces are doing, we get to see more of how the senators of the galaxy, both former Republic and Separatist senators, are dealing with the whole uprising of the Empire, seeing as though they both realize that they have to work together in order to find a way to reestablish the order. And I thought it was very cool and interesting to see these little tidbits on how these small saplings of rebellion against the Empire result in the overall alliance of the rebels once we get to the OT time period. Throughout Season 2, we've been seeing these clone assassins, or CXs, I believe their number is, or whatever, We've been seeing a lot of them pop up and being taken out, seeing as though they're just regular clones without an identity. But this specific clone assassin has brought up so much debate, seeing as though this one is like the best out of all of them, hasn't been taken out or captured yet, and seriously is like way better of a strategist than all of them combined. Which begs the question in the finale whether or not we're going to see the identity of this clone assassin, seeing as though the strongest theory is that this is tech. This definitely has to be tech, just like reprogrammed to work with the Empire or something like that, or mind wiped or something crazy like that. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see for the finale to see if it's true or not. Either that or we're just coping with his loss. Naturally, when the bat shows up with Crosshair at Rexon, the clone company's operational base, naturally they're apprehensive of Crosshair being there. But they do recognize that Crosshair is one of the most viable sources of intel on the Empire, seeing as though every time they try to interrogate a clone assassin, it doesn't go well. Once we have all of our clones together, Omega spills the beans on what the Empire is doing with all the clones, which is drawing their blood and working on them to pull up an M count for Project Necromancer. And thus, they all discuss their plan to take on Tantiss. The rest of this episode is pretty much a clear example as to why this specific clone assassin is a menace to the clones, seeing as though when trying to get as much information as they can from the clone assassin that they have in custody, this clone assassin just wrecks the place. Eliminates that one, eliminates some other clones, and completely terminates this base of operations. It's so crazy. But not only that, when the Empire is showing up, once the Empire does show up, we see that Wolf is in charge of this little squad that's meant to take on the Batch, which shows that the Empire still has their loyal clone commanders who aren't the super commanders. But that also means that Wolf's involvement in this gives us a little glimpse into his story, which is a little bit more explained in the next episode, or at least explored a little bit, which I thought was really cool and interesting. And it's not a shock to see Wolf here, seeing as though how Wolf is as a character, but it's still pretty cool to see him take on the Batch. Naturally, in the next episode, episode 7, when Wolf sees the devastation that the clone assassin has made, it's clear that he is very much saddened by the loss of so many of his clone brothers, which begs the question of his character, seeing as though he is naturally pro-Empire and pro-system, but Wolf is still at heart a clone and wouldn't want to see any of his clone brothers being killed over a seemingly unnecessary conflict. When we really start to see the action of the clone assassin taking on the Batch, especially this fight with Crosshair, oh my lord. Very crazy that this clone assassin is like, no, I'm just gonna drown you. I'm just gonna take you out by drowning you. Or like, jeez, that's crazy dark, but also very much insane. But thankfully, naturally, Crosshair is saved. But still, this was such a crazy moment. It was a cool fight to see them take each other on, especially if this is definitely a tech. But it just makes the scene even more crazy because of that fact. Seeing the conversation between Wolf and Rex of the need for all clones to be together against the Empire was very much a really great character moment and story detail as well. Seeing as though the relation between Rex and Wolf, how they both feel about the Empire, especially Wolf. Seeing as though, as we discussed earlier, Wolf is very much for the Empire, but he does know that there are tons of things that's wrong with the way that the Empire's doing things, especially with the clone brothers. Which begs the question whether or not this conversation with Rex strikes enough of a string to Wolf's heart that this is the event that causes Wolf to switch sides and maybe even be there for the finale to help out possibly Rex, the Batch, and all the other clones at the end. Or if there's going to be another little event in his story which causes him to turn, seeing as though he is one of the clones that's with Rex in Rebels and naturally not with the Empire anymore. It's just so many cool things that will hopefully be resolved in the finale. But yeah, this conversation was just really great for both Rex and Wolf. Especially since Wolf didn't know, or at least like naturally thought that Rex was taken out at the end of Order 66. Still pretty great stuff. Episode 8 is another supplementary episode, seeing as though Phee tipped off to the Batch that they need to be in contact with the bounty hunter in order to figure out why the Empire is trying to get their hands on Omega. And seeing as though Omega has been captured by Cad Bane and dealt with Fennec back in Season 1, naturally we get the return of Fennec in this episode. And it was a pretty cool little misadventure, and a great way to bring Melinda May back into... Wait, Melinda May... My bad. Ming-Na back into the role of Fennec, because she's so great, and she has such a great voice too. Love her character. A great example of character moments is especially during the middle portions of the episode, the B-plot, as you will, seeing as though Omega tries her best to get Crosshair the help that he needs, seeing as though medical assistance wouldn't help him at all with the situation, but she knew that she could find a way to help him heal, in a sense, seeing as though it's not just a physical ailment, it's also mental and emotional trauma that Crosshair went through. So seeing as though he decided to accept her help eventually, and they have this little bonding moment as well, I thought it was very beautiful to see Omega not only help Crosshair, but Crosshair being willing to open up and accept her help as they continue on the road to healing. And I thought that this meditation scene was so great too. Just look at the visuals. It's just so amazing. The reason why this supplementary episode is borderline filler is because this adventure practically resulted in Fennec not having the information that the Batch needed, but just for Fennec to give them another tip that, yes, the Empire is definitely hunting Omega for a specific thing for the M count stuff. And it was just pretty funny that, yeah, Hunter and Wrecker should have realized that this was going to be the result, but hey, we need our cameo before the series is over. In episode 9, we find out that Fennec was working for Ventress. Who? Ventress! It was a crazy plot twist in this Bad Batch season, seeing as though she seemingly was supposed to be dead before the events of episode 3. So naturally, we all assumed, and our assumptions were confirmed, that we weren't going to get any answers as to why Ventress is still alive and what exactly happened during the new retcon Dark Disciple arc with her. But hopefully we'll get a comic or another book to explain the canon reason why she's still around. But hey, having her here as a cameo is actually pretty cool, and our last little remnant of the Clone Wars. And her design is pretty great too. There's a lot to talk about Ventress, what with her role being a bounty hunter, the significance behind her having a yellow lightsaber and everything. But seeing as though there wasn't enough time to explore that here, seeing as though this isn't her story, hopefully we do get that comic or book. But yes, the reason why she's here is to not only explain the whole M-count business to the Batch, but also see that, seeing as though Omega is a very top priority candidate for this M-count business with the Empire and a top target to be captured, Ventress does what she would naturally do and test Omega to see if she has the potential to unlock her possible Jedi abilities, which I know it caused a disarray in the community, but I had a feeling that Omega wasn't going to be a Jedi. Because, as we all should remember, M-count or midichlorians isn't every single being in the Star Wars galaxy that everyone can technically use the Force to the smallest degree. It's only if you train hard enough or have the potential to learn how to use it like a Jedi or Sith would, that's fine. But everyone has the potential to use the Force, just like how Han Solo and Andor would technically be using the Force to be giving themselves like their uber special pilot skills. But yes, Ventress's role was to test Omega, and it was a cool little adventure episode too. And I thought it was pretty fun to see the Batch try to take her on. And it's like, bro, y'all don't even know who she is. But yes, Ventress does reveal that Omega isn't a Jedi nor has the qualifications for it. Even if she is lying, she doesn't want Omega to have another reason to be hunted down by the Empire if she truly can be at the level of a Jedi Padawan. What with her special M count and her special blood as well. But she does warn the Batch that the reason why she's dipping so soon is because she can tell that the Empire is going to be coming to Pabu and trying to take Omega, which we do see in the next episode. But yes, it just confirms that Omega's blood has to do with midichlorians, and that is the specific reason why her role for Project Necromancer is so important and crucial to Dr. Hemlock and the Emperor. Episode 10 is one of those calm before the storm episodes, which generally in most other media turns out to be filler or supplementary episodes, but this one is a very important episode, seeing as though this is the Dr. Emerie episode. And seeing as though she replaced Nala Se as the main scientist involved with the vault research, Dr. Emerie is brought into the vault to see what's behind closed doors, and Dr. Hemlock reveals that in the vault are children with high M count, which basically means that they are drawing blood from Force-sensitive children, which is understandable, seeing as though they need both clones and live Jedi blood in order to even do the snow clones. But that's so crazy. I'm pretty sure there was a line that was like, "Oh yeah, we can't use adults because they're kind of scarce, seeing as though we're hunting them down. But at least we can still nab children because of bounty hunters." But yes, that's just crazy to see that the vault is just a bunch of Force-sensitive children. But this episode also involves with Dr. Emerie's relations to the children, and seeing as though they're very much kind to her, this kind of changes Dr. Emerie's character, seeing as though she becomes more sympathetic towards them, and naturally because of her sister Omega, which starts to turn her character to want to do something against the Empire. It was nice to see that Dr. Emerie's involvement and presence in the vault is the main source of de-escalation between the clones and the children, but it also highlights the involvement that she has with these children and how they impact her character. I thought it was really nice and a good touch to show more as to who Dr. Emerie is as a character. Naturally, as I stated before, and from what the episode showed, the Empire is continuously hiring bounty hunters to get Force-sensitive babies to bring them to the vault, which makes it seem questionable whether or not this is the only vault of children or if there would be more, but seeing as though this would definitely be the only place that would be secretive enough to have Project Necromancer be taken place in, naturally everyone's very much hiding their children and their Force abilities, and this would be the only batch of the 4 Force-sensitive children. But hey, it's cool to see Cad Bane come back for another cameo, because we gotta get our cameos in before the end of the series. We see a big change in Dr. Emerie's character, seeing as though the kindness of the children, especially Ava, the reddish-pinkish child, is getting through to her. And what was nice about this moment was seeing as though she still has Omega's handmade doll. I forgot what it was called. Is it the Leiku? From the beginning of the season. She passes Omega's levity to Ava as a sign of kindness that Dr. Emerie gives to her, which gives some hope to her as well. And is definitely a great little moment for Dr. Emerie's character. I really loved this scene. It was really nice and sweet, and has a pretty great payoff in episode 13 or 14. But we'll get there when we get there. Episode 11 is what? Crazy episode, seeing as though it's essentially the Empire devastating Pabu. And it all begins with Clone Assassin sneaking on board on Phee's ship, which is crazy and crazy coincidence. It's a crazy coincidence, but it still begs the question: is this tech or not? There's just too much headcanon going around, and it would be too perfect for it. But yeah, pretty much SX sneaks onto Phee's ship, which will then cause all the mayhem that is to come. I also love that trope being used as the peaceful sanctuary for our heroes is quickly taken away from them just from the circumstance of one of the antagonists just stealthily sneaking in, which then begins and then escalates all of the destruction and mayhem of said haven. Crazy wild stuff. Naturally, the batch made preparations to leave Pabu for a good long while, which Omega is saddened because she has to leave behind her new bestie. But I thought the scene was very sweet in the sense of it deals with the theme of the willingness to let go and move on from things that would sadden you, seeing as though she leaves her Leiku doll and Tech's goggle, seeing as though she knows those things will always be with her, but she shows the willingness to let go of the sorrow that comes from it by leaving it here. Not to be forgotten, but to be a part of you that makes you stronger. Plus, in this sense, too, they're also leaving in the hopes to save everyone else before the Empire shows up, which we know that's not what's going to happen. CX enacts the plan and overwhelms the batch, and it shows the seriousness and hilarity of it, seeing as the Marauder's destroyed. But the hilarity part of it is that, oh, well, just like the Mando ship, we gotta destroy the old ship. And unfortunately for the batch, that does not mean that they're getting a new ship for a toy. But that is a sorrowful moment for the Marauder. Oh, your Lego set still escapes me. But in all seriousness, yeah, this is when things start to escalate, seeing as though the Batch are practically grounded here while the Empire's drawing in. Naturally, the rest of this episode deals with the Empire coming in and taking over Pabu. This moment between Crosshair and Omega I thought was really great and brilliant in a sense, seeing as though it shows Omega's resolve in her sacrificial plan to save the others by turning herself in, and the importance between a reluctant Crosshair understanding that plan and allowing her to do it. And the most important thing of all, she came to Crosshair to talk about this plan, seeing as though she knows that he, although he would be reluctant, would definitely go along with this plan and agree that this is the only way to get everyone out safely. So naturally, they conduct their plan. I thought it was a really great testament to their relation to each other and their bonding experience. And it was just such an incredibly interesting scene. Just overall, I thought this was really cool. The episode ends with the devastating scene of Crosshair failing to shoot a tracking device onto the ship, which was a part of the plan, seeing as though his injury is what caused him to fail. And just the way that he just stands there in just regretful silence is just so painful and so significant to his character. It was just an incredible scene. In episode 12, we get the return of Admiral Rampart, who is just Rampart, seeing as though he was stripped of his title back in season 2 when the whole Camino debacle was revealed to the public, and Palps did the stellar checkmate move of removing him from his power and showing the whole galaxy the reason why the transition from clone troopers to stormtroopers was the essential way to go for the Empire's safety. And that was crazy. But back to here, the reason why the Batch goes on a mission to capture Rampart is that Crosshair told them that the only way to get the information that they need to find the whereabouts of Mount Tantiss, the coordinates, is to find Rampart. During this little mission, there's a nice little moment between Crosshair and Wrecker where they have a small moment of levity, seeing as though now that Crosshair's back in the team, he starts making plays back in their old Batch days, seeing as though he asks Wrecker if he remembers a specific plan. And I thought that was a really nice and touching moment between Crosshair and Wrecker. And seeing as though Wrecker's just an adult child, that definitely immediately helps Wrecker trust and rely on Crosshair as he used to. So I thought that was a neat little bro moment and reconnecting of the two characters. The relation shift between Crosshair and Rampart was pretty funny, and seeing their little back and forth ramble was pretty good too. Their banter is so funny, especially when we recognize and remember what these characters were to each other back in season 2. But yes, the comedy, the memes is so good, especially the especially the fan shipping between, or fan teasing, or whatever the word is that I'm not using properly is between these two when Crosshair looks at Rampart and Rampart's like, "Are you here to kill me?" And Crosshair's like, "Tempting, but no." Or tempting, but no. I just thought the memes from this episode were so good. I thought it was pretty good that once the Batch got Rampart to safety and managed to get some intel from him, he tips him off that he doesn't know the coordinates of Mount Tantiss, but that they need to get it from an Imperial station, which naturally shows the trope that Bad Batch has had this season, where each episode will end with the tease to what adventure they have to do in the next episode. In episode 13, we start to see the bonding between Omega and the other children, especially with Ava, who she realizes has her handmaid Leku. And even though it's not specifically or generally mentioned about how she got her hands on it, I'm assuming that Omega also assumes that Dr. Emerie must have gave it to her, seeing as though Omega can see the kindness that Dr. Emerie hides behind her work, which is also a nice little payoff, seeing as though everything's just so sweet how, like, Omega made this symbol of hope, and then Dr. Emerie just passed it on to this child in the dire situation that they're in. I thought that was a really great little character story that we're going on there. Omega adds on to the fire of hope, seeing as though from some secretive help from Dr. Emerie, Omega informs that she has a plan for her and the children to escape, which she clues them in on. I thought the banter between the Batch and Rampart was pretty funny, especially with the whole, like, status thing. But the most intriguing thing that I got from this episode was their armor. Naturally, they removed all the personalized decals on their armors to better infiltrate the Imperial base, but I thought that this had more meaning to it. Of course, naturally, people said that this is most likely how their armor looked during their first initial missions when they first formed together, but I thought that maybe this implied the significance of them casting away their former selves, as after this mission where they retrieve Omega and they finally get back together and they figure out what they're gonna do for the rest of their lives after this point, this is their way of shedding their old identities and forming a new one together, seeing as though every single member of the batch has become a completely different person from who they were from the first episode. And naturally, any story would do that. At the end of every story, every character should, in fact, be a different character as they were in the beginning. But in this sense, it's a way for these batch members to finally shed this crazy chapter in their lives and start a new one. So I thought that was a nice little significant moment to show that their armor sets is representative of that sense. Or I could just be reaching, as I always do. Let me know what you think about that in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. As I mentioned before, I love the banter between Rampart and the batch, but especially when it came to this scene, when the plans seemingly change and they have to split up. I thought that we weren't going to get such an incredibly set of scenes with this split up, seeing as though we follow Echo and his little adventure, which is full of some great moments too, and naturally Crosshair, Hunter, Wrecker, and Rampart, with everything, with all the shenanigans that happens in the forest. And this was just such a pivotal point of and clear sign that we are finally entering the final arc, or this final little part of the Bad Batch story. This part when the plans change and they all split apart from each other felt like that moment in a RPG game when, such as Ghost of Tsushima and Marvel's Spider-Man 2, in which when you reach the final level and it gives you that warning of like, are you sure you want to continue? Because this is the final chapter. This is the beginning of the end. This is what this part very much felt like. And everything from here on out is just escalation upon escalation of story. I thought that this shot of Mount Tantiss was interesting, seeing as though this is probably the only time that we get an aerial view of it from the very tippity top. And I thought it was very interesting and very weird that at first glance, it's almost like a circle. And with the rings of the mountain, makes it look like a target that can be seen from satellite imaging, which makes it seem like a possible easy target for something like the Death Star, which makes me think like, oh no, are we going to have a finale moment where as soon as Project Necromancer is done, all the research is done, everything's shipped out of here, the Emperor's just like, now blow it all up, no sign of anything. That would be so crazy if that's the case. Either that or I'm just thinking way too much in this little shot. Let me know down in the comment section down below if I'm just crazy. After almost getting caught, Omega does confirm that there is a plausibility in her escape plan, as in the next episode we see that she does some more recon to find their escape route. Thus, when they realize that they have to be on the ship in order to leave and head towards Mount Tantiss, oh, it was so nerve-wracking and so suspenseful to see the ship finally dock right at the last second before jumping into hyperspace. And it was so palpable, it was so cool. So yeah, mission success in trying to figure out how to get to Tantiss, and we approach the penultimate chapter of The Bad Batch Season 3. Episode 14, the penultimate chapter of The Bad Batch. And oh boy, as soon as we begin, it's just like a bam, bam, bam action scene in which Hemlock receives word that the Batch is here and goes on the offensive and welcoming the Batch to Mount Tantiss with an aerial offense. Just a little appreciation post for both Dr. Emerie and Dr. Scalder, who I think are both pretty. But yeah, the ongoing fight in the skies is causing an impact in the Vault research, seeing as though all the doctors are seemingly freaking out in a sense that they have no idea what's going on and they realize that something is happening, and so do the children. The craziness of the escape plan is so hilarious, and the whole scene of them crash landing and jumping out of the ship with Rampart was just so funny. And props to Nasir Dalal's performance, because that man really played the character well in trying to like scream and be in complete terror. You could hear his voice crack in the middle of him screaming. Oh, this scene was so funny. It was so good. I love Nasir's voice performance. I think his voice is really great. In his recent roles that I've heard him in, it's pretty great stuff, but this was just so funny. I mean, just look around Rampart here. Funny stuff, good stuff. This little conversation between Wrecker and Crosshair was very important. I thought it was really, really well done. Seeing as though Crosshair straight up says that he owes Omega for saving him and he's willing to do anything and everything to get her back, which is a clear sign of Crosshair's change and resolve to do the right thing for Omega, seeing as though this whole season has been his redemption arc to be better and to do better for not only his brothers but also Omega, who is the source of change for him as a character. The conversation between Crosshair and Rampart is so important, seeing as though they had their relation before, and Rampart seemingly knew who Crosshair was as a character, but they separated before Crosshair had his whole change arc, especially the time Crosshair spent with Mayday and then now the Batch. So seeing as though Rampart's trying to get into Crosshair's head by trying to say that he knows him as a character, Crosshair is very much standing his ground and confirming with his actions that he is a definitely different character now. But it is important that Rampart quote at the end where he still feels like Crosshair's just doing this for himself. We'll see if that amounts to anything in the finale, but I'm pretty sure that Crosshair is definitely doing the right thing for everyone. That whole foresty jungle scene was just so crazy, especially when they encountered that giant tiger alien thing. But once the Batch separated from Rampart, naturally Rampart screaming all crazy and falling over, he gets captured by the Empire, which will be bad for the Batch, but will be an interesting thing to see what happens to Rampart and what he does in Empire captivity or custody. Yes, that's the word, custody. We'll see what happens with what Rampart's going to do after this in the finale. During Omega's initial escape route discovery, she finds that the Xylo Beast is here in Mount Tantiss, which is begging the question of what purpose does the Xylo Beast still have to Palpatine? Like, I know its armor is still like super durable and stuff, but in hindsight, when it comes to Project Necromancer, Snoke, and then all the stuff that the First Order has, what does the Xylobis even have? There's nothing that's really indestructible, right? So hopefully that's answered in the finale, unless if this is just meant to, like, maybe they're just experimenting on it just in case if they could see if they can do anything with it, but who knows? That's a big question that I have, where it's like, what purpose does the Xylobeast have to Palpatine now? If you're not going to do anything with it? I'm sure / hoping that we're going to get that answer in the next episode. Echo's little recon mission was quite cool, seeing as though he's just continuously adapting to the situation that he's a part of, with changing the armor, getting a robot hand to hide his own, trying to sneak around. When he goes through the astromech chute, I thought that was pretty funny. And then just trying to dodge like every single squad by blending in with everyone that he encounters, until he finally reaches the research room, which is a very important scene, seeing as though he finally finds not only the data on the other clones, but also Omega's file too. And then naturally he gets encountered by Dr. Emerie, seeing as though that's her workplace. The conversation that they have, though, is very much important, seeing as though this is a clear turn for Dr. Emerie and will be an important part of the overall escape plan. And it's very much interesting to see the dynamic between Echo and Dr. Emerie and how it's going to play out in the next episode. But yes, naturally, Echo's reluctant, but he knows that he needs Dr. Emerie's help in order to get everyone out, especially the fact that he didn't know that the Force children were here. But then again, how would he know? But now that he knows that there's more lives to save, they got to work together in order to save everyone. Once Omega returns to the children, she explains her Omega plan of escape, which will most likely see her and the children escape to the chamber where the Xylo Beast is and use it to escape Mount Tantiss and reunite with the Batch once they get out. Which is most likely why the Xylo Beast is there, probably. But yep, that wraps up the penultimate episode. And oh boy, we see all of our characters in their own little adventures. Everyone scatter all over the place, and by the episode's end, they'll all reunite once more. And oh boy, the excitement is really ramping up now. Now with the season recap out of the way, let's talk about the characters and their stories thus far and how they could lead into the finale. Starting with Crosshair, which I feel like I should have picked a more flattering picture, but I feel like this is fine. And so we have him going from someone completely broken and continuously being further broken by the Empire to a character that's more changed and resolved to do what's right and do the right thing, and who is very much a completely different character. And Crosshair is very much a better person for it too. Cares about his Bad Batch brethren, and especially Omega, who is a very important person, not only to him, but a great source of that confidence in himself and the reason why he went on such a redemption arc. So I could see that in the finale, he's either going to sacrifice himself or he's going to come in clutch and make an assist for the save to help everyone escape or something like that. He's going to have a big moment for sure in the finale. I can anticipate that. But yeah, overall, Crosshair has been such an interesting character all throughout. He may even be the best written character in the entire Bad Batch series. But what do y'all think about that? Write it down in the comment section down below, along with all the other character stuff. But yeah, I just figured I'd talk about Crosshair first, seeing as though he has such great story moments and character details as well. The main clone assassin, CX. We could hopefully see the explanation as to why this specific clone is way better and deadlier than all the other clone assassins that we've dealt with, and the possible revelation that this is indeed tech, just reprogrammed and way more deadlier than before, seeing as though the Empire must have done crazy things with him when fighting him during the Season 2 finale. Or it could just be that this is just one very skilled clone. Who knows if we'll get that revelation? Or it'll just be just a throwaway character that'll end up dying in an explosion or something to do with Crosshair if they have a rematch fight. Who knows? But the most important thing is it would be nice to see closure with this clone assassin, whoever it may be. Dr. Emerie's so pretty. I mean, I could see that Dr. Emerie has become a very interesting character too, seeing as though she was very much with the Empire and all it cared about was the research, as we could clearly see from Season 2 onward. And then she emerged as a character when she revealed her identity to Omega at the end of Season 2 as her sister. Hopefully we can see more of that during the finale, and whether or not she's also related to the clones in that sense. Whether or not she is a clone as well, or there's just something to deal with her and Omega in the sense of perhaps she's not technically Omega's mom, but Dr. Emerie may have lost her sister, and then in the cloning facility they used Django's cells to recreate Dr. Emerie's sister in Omega. Maybe that's a long stretch, but it could be something like that, where some crazy twist to deal with the revelation of Dr. Emerie and Omega being sisters and what that secret, if there's anything more to it than that. But I could see that she may or may not make a sacrificial play to help save everyone, or she'll be left behind in the Empire's hands to ensure that Omega and everyone else makes it out. It would be nice if she also escapes too, but we'll see if Dr. Emerie makes it out alive or not by the end of the story. But hopefully she has one last moment with Omega. That would be sweet. Ew. I made sure to pick the grossest picture of Dr. Hemlock I could find in this season. But yeah, it's very clear from the get-go this guy was just some creep and very much a great antagonist in terms of Star Wars villains as well. And his voice was great, his character was great. He kept rubbing his hands, which made me think that it's some kind of robotic arm or something like that. Almost like Mr. Han in Enter the Dragon. But it would be interesting if he has a conflict with one of the clones and gets in a fist fight and reveals that it is a robot hand. But I could see that either he makes it out alive and he continues Project Necromancer, or this is the last time that we'll see him. Maybe he gets caught in an explosion or blaster fire during a standoff with the clones. Ooh, wouldn't it be crazy if that's what happens in a standoff? Either Crosshair gets in the way and they take each other out, or Crosshair's the one that takes out Hemlock. Sort of like a revenge thing. That'd be interesting. But yeah, I don't see Dr. Hemlock making it out alive. I think Dr. Scalder is pretty too. But she's more cold and calculating than Dr. Emerie. And because of her character, she's more aligned with Dr. Hemlock than Emerie is in terms of her character nature. But saying that, I feel like either Dr. Scalder might be able to make it out all right with the other scientists in the vault area, but I don't know whether or not her character's gonna have a big significant moment during the end, or maybe just during a confrontation when the children are escaping, and maybe that's the last we see of her. There wasn't too much with her character, but it was still a very interesting addition to the character ensemble since Dr. Hemlock can be with Dr. Emerie all the time, so that's why Scalder's there. Try to be like the more mix of the two characters in a sense. And I thought that was neat. But yeah, I think we won't be seeing too much of Dr. Scalder during the finale. Echo. Echo's always been such a cool character ever since, Clone Wars and then his involvement in the Bad Batch. And then, of course, when he reconvened with Rex and started teaming up with clones more. I feel like after the Bad Batch concludes, I don't really see him staying with the Batch since he already left the first time, but it's not in the sense that he doesn't want to be with Omega and the others. It's more like he's going to continue his crusade with Rex and the other clones to get as many clones out of Imperial hands as possible. Seeing as though after this finale, I'm sure that Rex and Echo are going to conclude that Mount Tantiss might not be the only place that held clone prisoners, so they're going to try their best to go all around the galaxy to get more clones. And hopefully it's a tease that we'll get to see in a comic or a book exactly how far their story goes up until we see Rex, Wolf, and Gregor in Rebels, seeing as though they're the only 3 clones that we see in Rebels. But hopefully that doesn't mean that they all die on the way there. But yeah, hopefully we can see what turns out for our favorite clones by the end of the series. Hunter. Now, Hunter's going to be the interesting case. I would very much love it if we see him and Omega and the other Batchers just chill out somewhere and maybe go back to Pabu, help rebuild it and hide out, or they go somewhere else to live a life together. I'm really worried if they give Hunter the Logan treatment, in which, oh gosh, the sacrificial father ensures everything, even his own life, even gives it away to ensure that the daughter character and the others are saved. I could really see them giving Hunter a sacrificial play. Or maybe it'll start out that way and then maybe it's Crosshair that takes his place and saves Hunter, or maybe no one has to die and it seems like Hunter will do the sacrifice, but then Crosshair pulls him out the last second and saves him. Who knows? But it would be nice to see if Hunter can continue his life with Omega and his brothers, but I could see it go either way, honestly, with Hunter. He's been a pretty great character, too. All of them have been pretty great, but yeah, Hunter, I feel like, is one of the ones that come out on top in terms of depth and all of those little character moments, too. We shall see, and write down your comments down in the section below to see if you think Hunter will make it out or not. Omega. Now, the inverse of the Hunter thing is, what if Omega is the one that does the sacrificial play? I doubt that they're gonna do this over at Star Wars, but I could definitely see that in the case that Omega's whole ideal is to protect and save her brothers, all of the clones that she knows of. This has been a part of her thing since the beginning, I feel like. So it could be seen as her being the savior, and that would be so heart-wrenching if everyone did all this to save her, but she feels like the best way to do everything is to save everyone. But seeing as though that would kind of undermine most of the things that happen in the season, I feel like that's not going to be the case. The best hope, and what I truly hope would be the case, is for Omega to finally live a normal life without the worry of the Empire chasing after her, and she can finally live a normal life with her clone brothers. That would be nice and sweet. She can return to a sense of normalcy, even though their lives would never be normal ever again because of everything that happened. But at least they would still have that sense of peace and be able to live out their lives as just people, the people that they are and that they choose to be. Plus, I feel like the Empire may or may not want her anymore, seeing as though they might have all the data that they need from her in order to complete Project Necromancer and all that stuff. So maybe they'll let her slide, which that'll be pretty dark if they're like, yeah, we don't need to hunt them anymore since we already have everything that we want. But still, the most important thing is that I feel like Omega will definitely have a happy ending with her family. Plus, also, it would be nice if we can finally see the revelation of where she comes from, since she is a clone. We just want to get that question answered, Phee has been such an interesting character all throughout. She's been really fun, and it's also pretty funny to have Wanda Sykes voice her as well, since her charisma comes through the character. I feel like lots of people like her, and especially the whole dynamic with her and the Bad Batch, especially Tech. Who, oh, Tech. But back to Phee, I feel like she would help them out either by coming in clutch to save them, seeing as though she would be the only one with the ship, but I doubt it because of the whole trying to find the Tantiss coordinates thing. Either that or at least during the aftermath scene, once the conflict is over and everyone's trying to find a place to stay or something like that, she helps them out to find a new place to live and stuff. And yeah, Phee would just continue on bounty hunting. And I think that's what's left of her character. But that doesn't mean that she was a bad character at all, because she was actually pretty cool too. Rampart. Now, Rampart's the interesting character. He's been he has been an interesting character all throughout season 1 and 2, and then especially now that he returned. I could see him surviving the finale and then just living out on himself, just running from the Empire, or if whatever he does in the finale, either betray the batch or serve the Empire in some way, that he's welcomed back into the Empire, he just has to re-enlist or something like that. Either way, I could see that being an ending for Rampart. I mean, it would be a shame if he were to die too, but hey, hopefully everyone has some sense of living out their lives after this crazy journey that was the Bad Batch story. But yeah, what do you think about Rampart? Is he gonna make it or is he not? Let's find out. Oh, back to Tech. Because, of course, we all want to know exactly what happened to Tech. Like, I know we're all just coping and we can't let him go, but it would be nice if for the finale they finally reveal for sure, because, of course, in Star Wars, you can never know who's truly gone and dead until you see the body completely dead, you know? It happened with Maul, it happened with Palpatine, it happened with Reva. I feel like it only happens with the villains, but you know what I mean. It would be nice to have the confirmation that Tech is either gone or alive. Hopefully not dead, although that clarity would be very well appreciated, even though if it is sad, because the bats should live out together as a family, completely whole. But if he is alive, we need the confirmation as well of whether or not he was the clone assassin, or if he was just held in captivity or some place, or if he was just, imagine if he was just living out in the jungles of Mount Tantiss and he was just been scheming on how to bring down the entire research facility. That would be awesome. But I might not be able to see that as a possibility. But who knows? It would just be nice to see the fate of Tech finally revealed and answered before the series comes to a close. What do you all think about that theories? Let me know down in the comments. Sorry to save you for last, but someone had to be last. We finally get to Wrecker, who, oh man, imagine if they give him the same fate as Gregor in the end of Rebels, where he actually dies in terms of sacrificing himself to save the others. No! Let's not do that with Wrecker. Let's have him be a nice, happy, fun uncle to Omega and brother and stuff like that. Let's give him a happy ending. And it'll be nice if, to save everyone during the final conflict, they give him the chance to fire some big mega laser gun thing or explosion one last time, since his character arc started all the way back in Clone Wars during those episodes for just being the guy that just loves explosions. So yes, why don't we just give him a nice happy little ending too. Don't want to see him die, but we could definitely see that for sure. But it would be nice to just have him just live out his days with his fellow brothers and especially Omega, his favorite pal. Also, I didn't take a picture of Batcher, but yes, hopefully Batcher still is alive and around, because that would be weird if she wasn't. And thus, the video comes to an end. And unfortunately, that means the Bad Batch will soon be 2. But yes, that's all my thoughts and all the things that I had to bring up about the season overall, and all the predictions about the finale once it's released later in the week. And oh boy, oh, we're not going to be ready to have to let go of our characters. But one last thing before we see the finale of Bad Batch. My biggest theory so far, when I just thought about earlier in the week. What if we don't, this isn't the end, this isn't the last time that we see these characters. What if they announce after the Bad Batch finale on May 4th, once, oh my, Tales of the Empire comes out May 4th. Ah! What if they announce that they're going to make another series after, another spin-off series that takes place after Bad Batch. And it's just Bad Batch Series 2, but it's not called the Bad Batch, it's called something else. And it's just carrying on their story moving forward. Because, man, D. Bradley Baker is going to be busy with more and more clones if they do another clone show. But yes, either they make a spin off series continuing the story of the clones, because I really feel like they have to cover a lot during this last finale, or they manage to tightly pack everything in together, hopefully not feel rushed, and feel like a really great conclusion to the story. And that'll be it, and we'll just have to accept that this is the end of the characters, and that hopefully we'll all be happy with their fates and are accepting of that too. But yes, with all my rambling aside, hopefully I'll make a video about the finale after it comes out, so that way we can just unpack all the theories that I spread out here, and we'll see how it goes once it's all said and done and over. But yes, with that, if you all have any comments on my theories or any theories of your own, write them down in the comment section down below, for I'd love to hear it and keep the buzz going up until the finale. But yep, that concludes the video. And if you liked it, why not drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you're new? I know I haven't had much recently, but I'm still cooking. And while you're still here, you can enjoy some of my other content here too, like my Spider-Man 2 gameplay videos, because that was really fun. And trust me, there's plenty of stuff cooking for you when it comes to Spider-Man 2 stuff and other things. But for now, hope that you all continue to have a great day, and I'll catch you next time, especially for the next Star Wars related video. And I'd like to appreciate you for all your support. For your help is very much appreciated. You're awesome. I'm CJ, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Oh, my throat.
Later.